Hey, good afternoon and welcome. It's season two, episode 35, Cattle Drive Live. Tonight, Corey and I have the pleasure to visit with two industry icons. Uh, Dan and Mark Hoge are with us tonight, Corey.
Absolutely. Finally got them. Been trying to get them corralled. That's two guys that got a lot of stuff going on. They both happen to be at home tonight, and we got them gathered up.
What's the chances you catch those two guys this time of year? I would have never guessed we would catch them this time of year, but we did. So I'm thankful. Thankful you stayed after these guys. So
You bet. Hey,
I would.
I don't know about down there in Oklahoma, Brett, but it's starting to cool off up north here.
It did that just a little bit here for one day, I think. It rained for one day, remind us that it can rain, and it did get cool for one day and remind us it can do that.
That's great.
So it's all
Glad.
right. We're fixing to go to Louisville. I don't care.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're all good. Yeah. Hey, big week this week, but tell you what, we started the week off, ended the week, started the week with some news. The loss of a legendary cattleman this week, Corey.
Yeah, we did. A good friend, Myron Benish, there from Albion, Nebraska. Myron, long time manager at the Wagon Hammer Ranch there, well respected operation in the Midwest. Boy, sold countless numbers of club calves out of that operation. Great man, great cattleman. His boys, Kevin and Mark, will continue on. Both great in their own rights. Just sure sorry to hear about this. Myron's been fighting a battle with cancer that he finally lost, but we're sure thinking of that family this week and sure got them in our prayers.
Yeah, absolutely. There's without a doubt, you can't probably say enough for the footprint that man's left in this industry. So prayers to that family. But with that being said, we just hit on it, man. It is the week of the green chips fires up this week. I don't know. You said your crew was leaving out tomorrow. Is that right?
Yep, and we are going to listen to organ music the entire way there.
Uh,
We're excited for the Louisville trip. Yeah, them people are going to be headed to tie outs here tomorrow and Wednesday. They set stalls up down there on Thursday. Get to go in the barn on Friday. Them juniors should be Saturday and Sunday. Steer show should be there Sunday afternoon. So we
oh, I
are.
can't wait. I don't know why, I don't know how or why, but they've asked us to come back again this year to commentate the Market Steer Show again. You'll be able to view that on Cattle Drive Live. You'll be able to view that there through what is Landry's Show Barn Flicks as well. So
Sure. Absolutely.
we'll be able to critique Gerald Buck and make sure that he's doing things the correct way. Um, I don't think it'll bother our opinion's not going to bother what that guy does, but we'll at least get to pick at him. So,
Yep.
but speaking of Gerald Buck, they had the
Yeah.
American Buck and Bull Incorporated finals this last week at there in Las Vegas, where Gerald and Brenda's Bull 163H Mr. Vaquero is your 2022 Fraternity World Champion. Then his partner, the D&H Cattle Company, they left out of there a few days later with the PBR World Finals Champion Bull. That is Cool Whip. The bull of the finals, Corius, is unique. His name is 5G Flapjack. That is a son of the legendary Bruiser of Gerald and Brenda's. And so
Wow.
Bruiser's first set of offspring are 3 year olds, and they're already world champions again. So congratulations to those crew. I think that white bull right there left Vegas $200,000. So
Holy buckets.
yeah, wouldn't it be something to leave Louisville with Supreme Champion female with $200,000 check?
Boy, that'd be something.
Yeah. Oh well. But hey, that's enough of that. Let's get into the herd report powered by our friends at CCI Live. There was two big time sales, Corey, in the East
Yeah.
this week. Weingartner and Jones. Tell me about them.
Yep. The Weingartner and Klingman crew there, they sold last weekend. They sell 50 open heifer calves for a $30,000 gross. That gives them a $20,600 average. Top female was a Who the Man out of a maternal maid Lucy, that Lucy cow family, so dominant in the industry. She brings 130,000 even right there for that daughter. And then Randy Jones and Troy Jones out there at Jones Show Cattle. They sell 78 head of open heifers for $1,294,550 to average $16,596. They sell 47 head of breds for $240,150 for a $5,109 average. That brings the total to $1,500,334,000. $1,534,600 on 125 head of them things. Is what that brings up. I tell you, they're making these numbers so big, Troy. I can't say them anymore. That's how that's how good these sales are going this fall. The numbers are getting too big.
Oh, I'm telling you, just to read the sale reports, you about have to go to auction school anymore. It's getting so big.
Yeah. The high seller in that sale was a 24 carat daughter, lot 29. She brings $60,000.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, in the South market, it's time to breed fall calving cows, and the man himself, Brandon Horn, has a bull sale this week that knock your socks off of you. 20 bulls average $14,795. The lot 4 bull, a son of the legendary BDR, bring $47,000. So it was an incredible bull sale, running age bulls here, turnout bulls there from Brandon Horn. So good week. It's a big week leading up into Louisville. I know I'm excited to get there to see everybody. I know Kansas City was good, but I feel like people were lagging back just a little bit, ready to load the wagon for Louisville. So speaking of Louisville, Corey, we got 2 guys here with us today that have a pretty big imprint at that place. Would you say?
Oh, yeah. We got with us here tonight the Hoge family, Dan and Mark.
Mm-hmm. There they are.
Good evening.
Good evening. Guys, how you doing?
Yeah, good deal, guys. Good to have you on. We said earlier it was a little bit of a chore to get you guys, and it wasn't for lack of try on either part. Everybody just seemed to be busy, and Corey was pretty persistent with you. So thanks for taking the time this time of year.
You know, I don't have very many Snapchat friends. It's something my boys kind of got me into, and I don't know how to really operate Snapchat, but I got to ask, Corey, you are one of my 10 Snapchat friends, and I just saw tonight a gentleman on the back of a spotted donkey.
Yes.
And I am worried gravely because the gentleman exited stage left on the donkey, still on the burrow, but is he okay?
It got really good at the end, Mark. I'm glad you asked. There's a rock pile that actually I thought that donkey was going to run over the rock pile. He ends up locking all 4 legs up right at the base of the rock pile, throws the guy off straight into the rocks. He's fine. Everything's good. But what that was Senior Carrots, I guess is his name. And that's Brian McKay's donkey. And Brian brought a bull up to the bull stud today, and he wanted to send something along to keep him company. And sent Senior Carrots to keep him company. So then we had to ride him.
Well, to be honest with you, we were about 2/3 of the way through giving reasons tonight with the senior team, and I instantly stopped. I gathered everybody up, and they thought I was going to give them some inspiration. I said, hey, you want to know what it's like hanging out with me? And I showed everybody the Snapchat of the runaway donkey. I thought it was priceless, absolutely priceless. And, you know, as Dad and I had the privilege to listen to your introduction and sale averages, you know, one of the first questions that, you know, what's the history, where we've been, where we're going? I find it amazing that you 2 gentlemen spoke of bucking bulls, club calves, and breeding cattle, sales and awards and events of all 3. I realize all the same genus and species, but, you know, completely different markets. And I mean, pretty unique what our industry has evolved into.
Absolutely.
Oh, completely agree. Yeah, and it's not. People say it's just the show cattle bring this. It's everything brings that kind of money today.
Very
It's
much
good.
so.
Yeah, you
Very
bet.
much so.
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
what can we do for you folks tonight?
Well, I think it would be, it's without a doubt, it's an interview that both of us have looked forward to. And I mean, on both of your part, but Dan, we want to start with you if we can. Talk to us just a little bit about your early years. I think when you're Corey and I's age, you were maybe a legend long before we come along. Tell us about something prior to what we may know as the Dan Hoge today.
Well, thank you. It did start a long time ago. At my age, I was reminiscing a little bit, knowing we were going to visit this evening, and I thought about the fact that I grew up on a Hereford cattle operation in Duroc Hogs, Walnut, Illinois, and I grew up with showing Herefords through the era of dwarfism, and we just fought it tooth and nail. It seemed like my dad became so frustrated at times, mating normal-looking Hereford bulls with normal Hereford cows. Before we had genetic testing, and 1 in 4, chances you fellas know would come out to be a dwarf, and so that has always been in the back of my mind. And ironically, when I was at the University of Illinois, I finished school in 1966, and so at that time we were just coming through the small cattle era from post World War II. And what was most interesting then is the fact that there was very little emphasis placed on composition in market cattle. And I was on the 65 judging team that judged it with the University of Illinois at Chicago, and it was just at that time that the USDA developed the USDA yield grades in cattle. And that seemed to be correlated, as I look back now, in 1966 to the introduction of the continental breeds from Europe in 69 and 70. And I have to tell you gentlemen, you weren't born yet, but in the mid 1970s, at first key show that was held at Louisville. I will always remember this. The key show was going on just opposite the Angus show. And I wasn't very old at that particular time. I was teaching and coaching already at Blackhawk. And that particular day, or every year in those times, the keys were showing opposite the Angus. And I mean, there was standing room only at the Angus cattle show. And there's about 3 or 4 of us at the end of the ring down there. And you know where I mean, we stand at the end of that ring down there. And 3 or 4 of us watching the key show. And somebody came over, and I'll never remember who it was. Somebody came over and said, "Oh, what are you doing standing here at the key show when the Angus show is going on?" And I said, I don't know, other than the fact that this breed of cattle and the continental breeds from Europe have a place in the United States. And it was that belief, as my generation, we would say then, because I was born in 44, it's my generation, were part of that unbelievable movement of continental breeds of cattle in the United States. And there was a lot of trial and error. It was like Christmas every month of the year, which bull you were going to use. And we really had no direction, but we knew that these cattle and those breeds may have a place in the U.S. beef industry. And through that period of time, you folks witnessed, I know what has happened, and we made a lot of mistakes in those years, but from those mistakes, really great cattlemen and cattlewomen made the decisions to go in the right direction. And, we made them too big at one time. And any breed will tell you that everybody tried to make their breeds look like a Key Angus F1 cross, and that wasn't necessarily the answer either. But from that base, here we are today in the U.S. beef industry, and I would be curious what you folks think and what Mark has to say. in my opinion, the cattle that we have today that are being evaluated at the end of a halter, and I could even say in the nation's marketplace and feedlots, there's never been a better set of cattle visually and genetically in the United States than there is today. Now, I keep asking the Dr. Blake Bloombergs of the industry and people like that, what's the American beef cow going to look like in 2050? I'm really curious what we're going to ask her to do and what they're going to look like in the show ring. But that's where we are. That's where I've been, and so I've really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed the journey, so to speak, of being a small part of the U.S. beef industry, because during that era of the 70s, 80s, 90s, judged a tremendous number of these continental breed shows. And
You got anything to add to that, Mark?
I don't. Oftentimes people ask, Dad at 78 years of age still comes to Good Hope frequently, and he checks, and he always starts on our heifer runs. Then he goes to the pigs, and then if we have sheep and goats on feed, he'll end up out there. And he never comes in and says, "Hey, what are you doing wrong?" He will simply ask, "What are you feeding the heifer in run 3?" And I said, "Yes, I've slowed her down." "Well, have you looked at heifer in run 2? "Yes, Dad, I'm putting the neck sweat on tomorrow." We go to the pig barn. "Hey, what about the Baron Pen 5? I said, "Yes, I know. I've given him a shot already." And so what he does, and I think what has allowed him at 78 years of age to still stay very cognizant of what's good, what's bad, where are we going, is that, I never heard the story about the Key and the Angus, but that is his nature. And that's what he's developed at Blackhawk, and I try to develop at Western. So often in 2022, we walk by something that isn't quote unquote trendy and we say they're terrible. Instead, maybe take 2 steps back and say, where would that thing potentially fit in 3 generations? And I think it's admirable that when everybody else is watching the Angus, he was looking at these tall white cows, wondering where do they fit. And I think that speaks volumes for his ability to have the longevity he has in the livestock show ring industry. Pretty admirable.
Hey, I tell you one thing I did. It's actually 2 things that I left Kansas City thoughts in my head. Number 1, Scott Shockey and Kevin Newman picked a fat steer that was over 1,400 pounds at that show. I guess I've never looked at the history books, but that's got to be one of the first one of those that's been. And number 2, I thought watching a multiple numbers of those breeding cattle shows down there, that was at a national level the most times I've heard judges talk muscularity in some form. That many times in breeding cattle shows, I thought there was more of that talk down there than I've ever heard before at a national show. Just curious, you guys' thoughts on both of those. The trending on wanting this. I mean, it seemed like when I was showing, Mark was showing, they were 1250, 1275. You couldn't be 1300. And then we went to 13 and a quarter. And now we're, as long as you're under 4, I mean, they're weighing them things in at 1399. You got to 1460 way back. And finally we tipped the scales down there over 1400. What are your thoughts on them 2 topics, guys?
go ahead.
Well, this is what I find interesting. In social media, we want to know the icons and the greats. I find it interesting as a livestock judge, with a half a bucket of water, you go from 1379 to 1410. I used a big steer at St. Angelo one year, and somebody came up and said, "Do you have any idea that he weighed as heavy as he did?" I said, "No, I didn't ask." But I said, when you can make something that large and that good and still not look like an awkward beast, I said, that's admirable. We want to talk about changes. You go from fat belt buckle cattle to implementation of yield grades and looking at the full blood Chianinas. Those were some substantial decisions that had to be made by industry leaders. We talked to Chad Barker last year at National Beef. He buys 72,000 head of fat cattle a week. And I tell you what, right now, they're big. They take big black steers. They take them heavy. And as we're going to continue in colleges. We all want to talk about sustainability, and I ask everybody to define it. Nobody can, but anyway, it's a cool word to say right now. Well, efficiency of production is part of sustainability. Okay, so if we're going to feed the world and keep animal protein prices relatively efficient, we're going to not only focus on feed efficiency, but we're going to focus on that extra 30 to 40 pounds that we could put on a carcass. Still pay the same person the same price to make the knife cut or line it up on a laser on a processing floor and have that much more animal protein to merchandise. Best part about the steer, I wasn't down there, but obviously our students watch the internet on shows like It's Going Out of Style. He sure didn't look out of place to me. I look like a modern fat steer with high cutability, great red meat yield, and can feed a small village. And I think that's going to be the demand in the future. We have to feed the people on fewer resources, fewer inputs, and under more scrutiny by the urban society.
Absolutely.
What's your thoughts?
Well, you can tell that Mark is a lecturing professor, can't you? Because he just gave us the lecture
No.
on animal protein and efficiency. And, it is amazing. We're at that point where maybe, big is big enough. But I'll never forget, some of the shows I judged in the late 80s and early 90s. And, that was before they decided to moderate show steers. And I'll never forget, I love John Edwards to death. And he said, Hoge, when you use that Baldy steer at Oklahoma City, he said, you set the beef cattle industry back 10 years because he was that seemingly that big in a trend that we were going to go down. I've always liked bigger cattle because of the ancestry that I had environmentally, growing up with those compressed cattle. And so, if done correctly, and Mark said it so well, there is a demand for that kind of cattle. Is there an end point? That's going to be the deciding factor that, people like myself and not even Mark, what is so good is there's enough yet variability in the market cattle gene base that there are still cattle that meet different segments, of the quality market to the yield grade side, and that diversity and yet a common goal of correct composition, that's about as good as you're going to get an animal industry genetic base we have here in the United States. It is pretty cool. You realize you can make any kind of cattle you want to in America right now. You really can. And so the opportunities are there. The genetics, and then I'll be quiet here, but it's interesting. There's a family in Iowa that is taking fall-born October drop calves. They're weighing them in for the Iowa State Fair beef futurity competition. They're weighing 350 pounds at weigh-in, and they're fall-borns, born in October, weighing in this time of year, and they're weighing 1,450 pounds at the Iowa State Fair the next August. That's 13-month-old cattle. Basically, 13-month-old cattle weighing 1,400 pounds. Genetics are there,
Right.
If managed in that manner.
Both of you guys, I would say from an industry standpoint, are two guys that have had the ability to judge multiple species at the highest level. Your knowledge of both of those is probably unmatched in my opinion, being able to step in there at that level. You talked a little bit about trends and the genetic diversity of the breeding cattle. The pig side of it, you could change the pigs from major show to major show, completely change where the industry's headed. The cattle deal seems like it's a much slower transition. Do you guys feel that the trends of the cattle business today, is that positive? Does it make you cringe? Do you like where we're headed? Do you like the comparison at all of being able to change so quick and one is so slow?
Well, I can't speak for Mark, but I can say that, people have asked me sometime about swine breeding versus cattle breeding, and I said I realized I wasn't smart enough to breed cattle, so we breed pigs for the same reason you just said, Brad, and that is, you can cash in your mistakes overnight. Those young people that have been through any program in the country, in this case Blackhawk, and I know that Blake is saying the same thing in the classroom now. The fact that if you are going to be involved in the cattle business, you redefine the word patience. And with patience has to become the abilities to stand the long haul from a financial commitment standpoint. It is so difficult to breed cattle. You are so right. And those of you that do it, you have my just utmost of respect, because you make a mistake and you live with it, like you just said. So once again, there's nothing that's going on in the cattle business that makes me cringe right now. There really isn't. The only thing that I would share as maybe a concern is the fact that I don't know. I think we need to have a national symposium on soundness in cattle, and what is sound and what isn't sound, and where do we draw the line, as with regard to acceptability in the show ring. That to me will determine where we are, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, in the cattle industry. The cattle are simply still not sound enough. And that's no one's fault. But at the same time, I've often said it in the public settings, human nature is a funny beast, and we'll never leave well enough alone. And once again, there's always going to be a trend here, a trend there, and we will make mistakes. You realize in my generation, fellas, we have made more mistakes in breeding cattle than you could believe imaginable. We had no idea where we were going, except we know we needed a different genetic base in America, to complement the traditional breeds of Angus, Hereford, Shorthorn. But at the same time, human nature it'll be interesting where we are, as I said, 20 years from now, what the American beef cow will be asked to do. And I know one thing for sure, she's going to have to probably do it on grass.
Right.
So that's where my thoughts.
First of all, being a multi-species evaluator, I think it's just good stockman. You can go in and you meet a guy and you study his cow herd, and it's beautiful and it's presented right, and you can tell what they like about the third cow you see because they're all the same. You bring that same person into another species ring, they will pick females that emulate the same thing regardless of species. When it comes to market animal evaluation, they're all the same creature with the other digestive tract, the same muscles, and it's the same battles. Dad says, let's have a symposium on what's sound enough in cattle. You might as well bring the sheep, goat, and pig guys with you, because I mean, I've had a hind leg described to me 18 different ways, other than it's there or not there. It gets difficult, and I work with students all the time. What's sound enough, what's not. The advantage of being a pig breeder is we can look like a genius by mistake in 6 months, and then if we look terrible, we blame the sow. If it works, we're a visionary. And it changes. You go to jackpot, from jackpot to jackpot. When I bring cattle people into the pig ring and I talk about the jackpot show that basically keeps the gerbil on the wheel in the show pig deal, they get so frustrated. They're like, well, I got last, and then I got first, and then I got champion, and then the judge told me to take my pig to the butcher shop all in one day. You go to a cattle show and it's, you don't see the variation in terms of that range of where you're placing, to the good or the bad. And I think that sometimes is a bit frustrating. To me, when a cattle breeder makes a decision, you are impacting land payments 3 years from now. The biggest challenge that I see from my age growing up to now is that when feed cost and corn was $1.97 and soybean meal was $60 a ton, we could keep what we called R&D projects. And you might keep that sow, or you might keep that cow, and you say, hey, I won't be able to sell her calf this year for a value, but I'm going to build a set of daughters. And then I'm going to come back with this bull. And in 3 generations, I will be where I want to be. Well, I still promote that to our students. And a good friend of mine in Iowa said, Hoge, this is about 4 years ago at Griswold, said, he goes, Hoge, I don't like my cattle. I don't like my calves. What do I do? I said, real easy. I said, do you like a cow real good? He goes, oh, yeah, I got a good cow. I said, well, she has a male calf. Leave him intact. Let your semen tanks go dry. Grow that bull up. Breed every cow to it. And I said, in 3 generations, you will have a great cow herd to build off of. He goes, Hoge, I'll be broke in 2 years. I said, exactly. So we're not going to do that. So, we have to pay feed bills. And with the pressures of inputs of feed and cost and semen, and then the pressures of the banners, the only way you stay relevant is if you have a banner to post that, hey, Johnny and Petey and Sally and our children won, please come back and buy cattle. With that pressure really puts a burden on a guy to have a generational breeding program. Okay. The great livestock minds that are in production today, and even came before those guys that are still in production today, they always did have a plan. There was a 3-generation game plan in their mind. They might not have shared it with you, but there was a plan. Today, with our young people, they want their answer in a nanosecond. And if it's not on their phone, then it doesn't exist. And they want instant gratification and instant success within generation 1. And the patience of the animal breeder is going to be challenged in the next 20 years to pick a plan. Because litter mates, full sibs, flushes, one will be worth $50,000. The other one will get docked $300 at the feeder calf auction. Full sibs. We got to work on the consistency within the gene pool that we're getting in all species. So that's my pros and cons. A little circular of an answer, but hopefully.
Well, but Corey, not to cut you off here real quick. I don't want you to think that I thought it was simpler to breed pigs than it was cattle by nature. But I feel like what makes it tough in the comparison is the fact that we breed by trend or we breed by feel. I've made decisions a year and a half ago that I have to live with today. Yeah. I'm making decisions in my falls that I'm going to probably not see the full turn for 2 more years today. And I say that based upon trends that sometimes are set by guys like yourself, by guys who are evaluators. Y'all set the trend that we have to envision 2 years from today.
Well, and I think from an animal breeder standpoint, I tell people all the time, you can take 6 months off feeding barrows to a year. Take a year off showing pigs and go back to showing. You will look like a first-year 4-H'er. You can take 5 years off a cattle show and come back, and the same genetics are still relevantly current. And that's simply based on generational of the creature we deal with. Right. Now, should judges, and I be one of them, and the guy to my right be another, should we be blamed for some of the poor trends that maybe are occurring? And I don't know if it's a trend. But I tell people all the time, when you try to put a middle linebacker with a Kenyan marathon runner and the cover of Vogue magazine supermodel in one creature, we're going to get some weird stuff coming out of that. Okay? And all this shit's not going to work. They're all going to come out bee's knees. Okay. So do I need to take the blame of that? I'll take my fair share of blame. But at the same token, I want something that's going to stop me in my tracks, turn around and say, what is that? And what is your name? Okay. And in an industry that is that elite, to try to make the mystical unicorn, it's difficult. And if it was easy, like my grandpa said, if it was easy, everybody would do it. So
hey, Corey, what did you quote? You quoted Mark last week on Cattle Drive.
Oh, yeah. I think wasn't it you in Denver the year of we were talking about the Shockey steer with Shane Shockey, and your comment about, you called him a zoo animal. He had feet like a rhino, legs like an elephant, neck like a giraffe, or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I would cringe to go talk to a gentleman that calves 1,000 cows a year, because he would probably punch me right in the face. That shit doesn't come through the pelvis very easy, but that's okay. Human nature is to push the limits. We're not, we want the unique, we want the extras. And I don't know if that was always the case, but right now, distinctively different sells at a premium. And, due to due to, what's a female worth with IVF, with conventional flushing, with boars bringing $300,000 at 60 pounds. The greatest question I have for our industry, Dad wants to know how we're going to raise them. I want to know what they're worth. I mean, we are seeing astronomical female prices, and I've seen this the last 2 years at pig type conferences. Gilts are selling higher than the boars. The elite males, due to AI, they're going to be utilized extensively. But man, that female, it takes two people that really like her, and she's over 50 grand in a hurry. It's pretty wild to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no doubt.
Did you have anything to add?
No, we often define, I don't know where we are on time, but we often define the difference between complete and common in the classroom. And they remind, because we talk about complete. And I have to tell you this aging story that back in the 1980s, I was judging the Chester White Type Conference down in Dothan, Alabama. And the late Jack Rodabaugh was the premier Chester White breeder at that particular time. And I used his elite breeding boar, as I would call him. He had the tremendous pieces in reserve, and I used a really complete problem-free boar, middle of the road, for champion. And I'm back in the barn after the show. I made the mistake, or good fortune, I don't know which, running into Mr. Jack Rodabaugh. And he said, Dan, tell me about your champion boar. And I said, it was just a good, safe, good middle of the road Chester boar. He said, I'm going to tell you something about breeding livestock. There's only two things in the middle of the road: white lions and dead skunks. In breeding livestock. And you know what? Now check this one out. The late Jack Rodabaugh was legendary, just swine breeder. Mark and I, he wasn't very old. We go to Rensselaer, Indiana, going to buy us a belted a Hampshire boar to use natural service at the farm at Walnut, trying to make some better barrows. And we jump out of the truck, and Jack Rodabaugh says, how can I help you, boys? And I said, I want to buy a barrow boar. And I mean, he stopped me dead in the tracks. It's about like somebody wanting to buy a steer bull. And he stopped me dead in my tracks. And he said, I'm going to tell you something. He said, you don't want to buy a barrow boar. You want to buy a boar that will sire the highest percentage of outstanding commercial offspring. And if he does that in that group of pigs or steer or cattle, there will be one you can show. And you know what he said in that? Do you know how profound that is? That, if you want to breed for the totals, and in that group will be one that you can make. Yeah, interesting.
I do like that approach. I do. We had the pleasure this winter. We went through and talked to some guys who owned or bred some of the most influential sires of the club calf industry. And each one of those guys resonated with the other on accident, really. They talked about they had a belief in their bull to the extent that they would breed their entire cow herd to this bull. Dean Kephart with Full Throttle, Bobby May with Sugar Ray. And the list goes on and on of guys who were after the same pile of calves. They weren't after the one calf. And I thought you just said that in a nutshell. So,
yep.
Sweet.
Hey, Dan, you mentioned the classroom there. I think everybody out there knows you guys obviously have a long history of teaching. Hey, Dan, you go first in this deal. What's your favorite part that you've taken away over the years, the many years you put in with your students? What do you take away from that as the most positive?
Oh, without a doubt, the people and the students. I don't care whether it's from the classroom, the laboratory setting, or the judging team. The hours that you spend. My greatest disappointment over the years is, as a community college instructor, you barely get to know them, and then they're finished and transferring on, or they're going out from the applied science program, and that's been difficult. But that we never want to lose track of the fact that this is a people-driven industry, and it's about people who are born to raise livestock. The industry leaders, I mean, when I was younger, we would drive hundreds and hundreds of miles, to listen to Harlan Ritchie, the late Harlan Ritchie, give a symposium. That those people that we listened to, they were just amazing to watch in the show ring. So short steers. Herman Purdy at Louisville. I mean, that was like an icon watching, someone like him just to walk into the arena. It's the people that have made the greatest impression. Students have often asked me, what's the greatest steer you ever selected at Fort Worth, San Antonio, Denver, and or female at national shows. And I don't know as if there was a one in each of those species, but at the same time, the people that stand beside those cattle, they're the most important aspect of what we do. Mark?
I think from my standpoint, and I'll start with what Dad, best part about coaching a livestock judging team is getting to watch those students go to producers. And I don't care if they get all 50s or they simple bust 8 classes. But for example, you mentioned Brandon Horn's bull sale tonight. I take a group of students to Anson, Texas, or if we can't make it there, we'll actually FaceTime him in livestock merchandising class. And that guy can turn your frown upside down, make you want to slam dunk a basketball when you have a 2-inch vertical leap and go conquer the world. My job is to expose students to hammers, because my greatest fear in the classroom is that somebody that got in the van with me for a year, 5 years down the road, if I see them at a show and they're following bad livestock to the ring, that is a nightmare for me. I wake up with cold sweats at night thinking, oh my God, I taught that. My greatest joy is 5 years down the road, they're generating good stock, they're winning shows, they're judging shows, they're engaged within the industry. I tell everybody all the time, we're in sales. I ask our students, who in here is going to be in sales? Nobody raised their hand. I said, okay, everybody raise your hand, because everybody's in sales. You sell concepts in your interview to get your career. In education, I'm in sales. I have 50 minutes to sell concepts to students that only want 70% of what they pay for. Try to keep that mojo going for 50 minutes, and every day is a challenge. I teach because the one moment in that class period where a kid, the light bulb goes off, and he might be flunking geology and zoology, but all of a sudden he thought of a bull, thought of a pedigree, thought of a cow herd and a cow family he wants to build off of. And 5 years later, he is implementing that on his own. And I think that's why we educate. We educate for the glimmer of hope that is there, because our future, yes, it's in beef cattle genetics and swine genetics, but our future is in the young people that are going to be managing those decisions. That's powerful. We don't get paid based on that power of influence, but it means a lot, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no doubt that light bulb moment for you has got to be the one key factor that you see somebody. I've never ever really looked at it that way, but that's pretty neat.
And 3 lectures a day, if I get 2 students hooked on a concept, I got to consider that a success.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, and try harder the next day.
Yep. So riddle me this, both of you. This industry's been good to both of you. You have been good to this industry. What are you most thankful for to this point that the industry has done for you?
Oh my. You mean from a personal standpoint?
From a personal standpoint or a professional standpoint, what is something that you look back and say, the industry afforded me this, and this is what I was able to do with that?
From a personal standpoint, and this gets a little bit heavy, but as a child, I stuttered. I stuttered so bad that I wouldn't even talk to people. And through junior high, just wouldn't hardly talk to people, and in the class. And high school, I got along a little better. When I got to college, my dad, I wanted to judge, because my dad was a very successful Duroc breeder and Duroc judge across the country. And so I took every speech class I could take at the University of Illinois. And business and professional speaking, I don't care if the word speech was in it. I took it because I wanted to be a public speaker. And what that has done for me from a personal standpoint, judging shows across America, lecturing in Japan, judging in Canada, is the ability to just stand before people and express my thoughts and work with young people. So that's the personal side of it, what it's done for me. From a industry standpoint, the people that I have met, I would be remiss if I even mentioned one person's name, but Deanna and I watch on the webcast, across the country. And it's amazing, even though we may not be able to be there that day to watch that show, those people that are showing and winning, those people that are judging, even the young people, it's the network that I've been blessed to develop across the country from an industry standpoint. And it's kind of funny that just this last weekend, Mark and I went to Jefferson, Wisconsin to judge the Boo Bash steer show up there, a couple hundred head. And they wanted the old and the young, opposite rings. Well, the problem was we decided it was the old and the oldest that were judging up there that day, because Mark doesn't consider himself young anymore. But to be able to
says who? I'm a spring chicken.
Yeah,
I'm still spicy.
Yeah. But what's interesting is the opportunity, to stay current. And to work at just trends and what people are saying, what they're doing, that's been a blessing. That at age 78, I'm still hammer down. We're going to study this and we're going to see what's happening.
Awesome.
Personally, I guess I took a little different approach. I did not have a stuttering problem. I had a problem not shutting up. Okay, so that was probably my initial problem. But what has the industry done? I see it every single day. Our industry gives kids a purpose and a sense of belonging. There's so many kids that go to college that have a change of major 4 or 5 times, and they're a junior in college, and they were in theater, they were in music, they're in biology. They don't have a direction. The livestock industry and the show industry gives kids a purpose and a direction that they belong. They belong somewhere. From a personal standpoint, my wife and I have chose to raise our 3 children in the barn. And Carter Hoge just finished his senior football year, got beat in the second round of playoffs. And he was really worried because this next week is the junior heifer show at Louisville. And he told me, he goes, "Dad, you're not going to make me make a choice between showing cattle and playing football, because this boy likes showing cows pretty solid." I said, "No, we're not going to make a choice. We're just going to go the hardest we possibly can." His coaches afterwards, Carter's got some athletic ability, but he's tenacious in terms of his work ethic, his drive, his lifting weights, and his ability to follow through on what he says. His wrestling coaches and football coaches, they rarely get to coach somebody with that kind of drive and determination. And yeah, maybe a little bit of it's genetic, but it's environmental. And this industry instills that in our children. And so as a judge, when we accept a show and go judge, I've never asked what I'm going to get paid to judge the show. But rest assured, we do treat that ring like it's sacred ground to us as a family, because we were raised in that sacred ground. And I want to make sure that my children have the same experiences that I had. And I want to make sure that my grandchildren can enjoy that time on that same sacred ground that we call the show ring, that we all need to take real good care of when we step in there and grab a microphone. So the industry has been great to me. It has made me who I am. And as a result, I will hopefully get to spend the rest of my time giving back to the industry that is basically created me.
There you go.
Yep. Hey guys, we wrap all these deals up with one last question to both of you. You guys decide who gets to go first, but we just want to know. We just always ask everybody, what is the what is the thing in your life that you are the most proud of?
I'll go first. Without a doubt, being fortunate to being married to Deanna in December, going to be 54 years, and proudest of raising a special needs autistic daughter and a young man by the name of Dr. Mark Hoge. Probably the proudest of that. Then, without a doubt, these grandkids. And I think anyone that you really talk to that's blessed to have a family, they will say that because in the grandkids, you just cherish every minute that you can to watch them in their activities of choice and in school activities and in the show ring. Most proud of that. Secondly, from a professional standpoint, I was full-time in the classroom for 50 years. And, from day one to the last time I lectured in May of 2020, those were 50 of the greatest, most rewarding years that a person could spend, doing nothing but working with young people in American agriculture. Without a doubt. Mark?
I think oftentimes people are like, well, your dad did it, so that's what you do. And I don't think my father ever asked me one time to go to a judging practice or join a judging team or, hey, do you want to judge a show?
Never.
I enjoyed it. And that's something in common ground that we had. And growing up, sometimes, Dan Hoge's your dad, it was cool most of the time. Sometimes it got a little weird, but that's okay. You kept showing and you kept going. And I wanted to be my own person within the industry. And so I really tried to value my family, but not take advantage of them in the situation and try to earn my keep. Oftentimes, one of your questions was, what do you think of a young judge putting their name in and promoting themselves to judge? And I think when you get a shot, I don't mean to be cheesy on the Eminem song, but man, you get a shot and you do get one shot. When you get that call for the right show at the right moment, you have to seize the opportunity. And I've tried to seize all opportunities that I possibly could. What am I the most proud of? Without a doubt, and I don't mean to sound just like dad, but my wife and 3 children, I'm the happiest when we're at home together in the barn or we're together at a show. Growing up, I never went to a livestock show alone without family members. And I have not went to a show alone without our family, my wife and children. And it is a family affair for us. And that's why we enjoy it so much. Professionally, I don't know. I don't really think about what I've done and what I've accomplished. I think about more, what can I do that hasn't been, when people say you can't do something, that is tremendous motivation for me to say we can. We can if we do it the right way and we put the right people together, we get the right opportunity. The multi-species thing, good stockmen are good stockmen. I often tell show officials when they say, hey, can't find a good judge, I say, get you a bag of popcorn and a slushie, sit in the stands, and whatever creature you like the most frequently that's shown by that chapter, go in the alleyway and say, hey, who's in charge? Whoever raises their hand, get them to judge your show. That trencher barn mentality, we can do a lot of positive things. In terms of rewarding, as long as my family and my wife and my children enjoy doing and exposing the livestock industry, I'm tickled because I'll be honest with you, I know nothing else. I don't have friends or hobbies outside of the livestock sector. So it's what we do. We live it every day.
Right. I can attest to what you just said about your integrity in the ring and how much effort you put into it, because without a doubt, Corey and I have referenced this more than once. We got to witness the greatest argument ever, eating a steak in Oklahoma City last March between you and your associate judge. And it was strictly passion on both sides of the ball. I can tell you, we will not get into that today, but I can tell you, I saw passion in 2 guys The kids at OIE is where that was at. The kids
Yes.
at OIE have no clue as to what you two guys argued over the night before the the crossbred drive. It was over a 4th place barrel.
Yep.
And I can tell you, I have the most respect for you after that than anybody. It was awesome.
Yep. Well, but keep in mind, passion is great in discussion. I oftentimes think that we can have good discussions that doesn't have to turn argumentative. We can debate. There's no right answer. This is a very subjective industry we're in, but as long as there's honesty and integrity in the decision and transparency of, if you describe it this way and it's visually to everybody, they don't have to agree. But hey, that microphone's your only line of defense. And so as long as you can articulate, this is the greatest way to raise children there is in the country, there is in the world. I'm firmly convinced of that. And as a result, the Hoge family, we're going on 3 or so generations of advocates of the livestock show ring, and I really don't see any change in the near future generations. That this is the best industry to be in.
I tell you, one of the best Grand Drive speeches that I have ever heard. I remember exactly where I was standing at Kansas City when the Maine Junior Nationals was there in Kansas City. Dan, you judged, and you had just been to Louisville the week before to the what hog shows in Louisville in the summer.
The NJSA Summer Spectacular.
And Mark, your kids were young back then, just getting started. Had taken a bunch of hogs down there you were awful proud of. Dan tells the story how you went down there, kind of got your tails kicked in, and the kids were sitting on the show box. They were just kind of down, and that was kind of right in that era when a lot of people were, there's politics here and this and that and the other and making excuses. And Dan said he looked right at the grandkids and he said, we need to do better. We need to build them better. We need to make them better. And next year we're going to bring them back better. And I tell that message when I judge shows, because I think it's so true. Sometimes you just got to look at the stock and look at the stock that beat you. And sometimes they're just not as good. And I think as an industry, we probably need to do a better job of looking at that.
Very much so. You have 2 choices in this gig: get better or quit. And there's no quit is not in our that's the easy way out. So you just study your lesson and bear down and get it next time.
Yep. Absolutely. Guys, thanks. It's been awesome. We could continue this on, and I hope at some point, maybe by spring, we could revisit and talk about the things that we saw this fall, this major show run, and get through the Texas majors, and maybe sit down and visit with you two again. So
anything you guys need, thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark. Good luck here this next week.
Yeah, we'll see you guys in Louisville.
Absolutely. Oh man, it's awesome, Corey.
Great stuff.
Yeah, you bet. I gotta tell you, we are gonna have to dive back in that argument because that's still the greatest. That's still the greatest argument ever. And I don't even call it argument. There was 2 guys that were right.
Strong discussion.
I love it. But hey, we're gonna wrap this gig up tonight. And I thought this Bible verse at Cattleman's for Christ came to me when I thought about Mark and Dan Hoge, and it's Proverbs 28:6, and it reads, "Better is a poor man who walks in his integrity than a rich man who's crooked in his ways." And I feel like both of those men walk with integrity. They have spent a lifetime showing that integrity, and they've never, one time that I know of, they've done something that wasn't the right way to do, whether nobody was watching or not. And I feel like that's something that I wish I had said that to both of them when they were on there. Hopefully they're still listening right now. But I think that's, to me, is something that is in much of their ability to show, to judge, to create, to imprint youth. I hope the kids have understood they've done that with integrity. So, but anyway.
Class acts.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, anyway, if there's an EPD for integrity, I would say Dan Hoge has sure the trendsetter there. So, but anyway, hey, man, it was awesome. I guess I'll see you in a few days in Louisville.
You bet. We'll see you down there, man.
Okay, take care. Good to see you.